Yes, we are live. Um, Hello and Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I guess
Salam.
we don't have viewers right now.
In a while,
Let's
we'll
wait.
have someone.
Okay, let's start. Hello and Assalamu alaikum, everyone. On behalf of Scholarships Corner page, in collaboration with Language House, presents you our session number 4 of the IELTS preparatory crash course with Sana. In this session, we will be discussing IELTS reading. Before we move towards our reading section, let me recap you our yesterday's session that what we discussed in that. Our yesterday session was IELTS speaking test, IELTS speaking section particularly. In that we discussed the pattern, the parts which were divided into 3 parts, part 1, part 2 and part 3. And then we discuss topics and resources for journal and academic reading. Oh, sorry, this was today. Okay, we discussed about all the parts, and then we discussed that how it is evaluated. Then the last one was something about language house, that how you can get enrolled in this language house page and what facilities this page gives you. And this was all about yesterday. So moving towards today's session, which is IELTS reading session, and this one is the more considered as the most important part of the IELTS. So Sana, I hope you are doing great.
Oh, yes, I am. Alhamdulillah, Ramadan is going so well. And this is the month of blessings, so I'm also enjoying the blessings.
Okay, Sana, please tell us about today's session. What is the pattern of IELTS reading?
Well, today's session is very important because IELTS reading is one of the most difficult modules that ever appear in IELTS exam, and people usually find it quite challenging. Even those who are habitual of reading find this module quite challenging because of the pattern and because of the time limitation that is offered in this module. So yes, this module is very very important, and also while you're practicing for your reading module, naturally your practice for the other modules becomes better as well. So that is why IELTS reading is a very important module, and people should pay more attention to this one as compared to the other ones. So first of all, we'll discuss the pattern and that how is IELTS reading module taken. Usually, your IELTS listening, reading, and writing is taken on one day, and IELTS spoken, as we discussed yesterday, is taken on another day. But for some people, this will be on the same day as well. So IELTS reading comes in a second number to your test. The first one is IELTS listening, and then comes the IELTS reading. So when you start the test, you actually there in the center for like 2 hours, and then you open your reading module. It is a 1 hour long module. You have 1 hour, and in 1 hour, you have to read 3 or 4 paragraphs. It doesn't matter how many paragraphs you are reading, whether they are three or they are four, but the word count is always between 1700 to 2400 words. And you'll always have to answer 40 questions. Now, there is something different from the listening module. In the listening module, you're given 10 extra minutes to transfer your answers from the question booklet to the answer sheet. But in the reading module, no such time is given to you. No extra 10 minutes are given to you to transfer your answers from your question booklet to your answer sheet. And that is the reason that most of the people get confused, because in the listening module they are given 10 extra minutes to transfer the answer, and they expect that those 10 extra minutes will also be provided to them in the reading module as well, whereas they are not provided. So my first tip is that answer your questions directly on the answer sheet instead of first writing them on the question paper and then transferring. Because to be honest, the test is not that difficult. The paragraphs which are given are also not that much complicated. It is a game of time. Imagine that these are, you have 60 minutes, 1 hours to solve the question, and you have to answer 40 questions. So if you spend 1 minute on each question, 40 minutes are gone. Now you just have 20 minutes to read 3 or 4 paragraphs, and you also have to recheck or transfer your answers in the same minute. So this is an illusion. Most of the people get really relaxed. They say, oh, we just have to read 3 paragraphs in 1 hour. That's quite easy. So actually, it's not just 3 paragraphs. It's reading 3 paragraphs, answering 40 questions, and then you have to transfer your answers to the answer sheet as well. So that is what makes it challenging. That you have to keep your eye on 3 things and you have to move them all together. Then general and academic reading modules are slightly different. The general module usually is, it's different in the topics and the uh, yeah, the sources from where the questions are taken, and the material that appears in test is slightly different, and then definitely the marking is also different as compared to the one in general. The general module usually has paragraphs which are of the general interest and which are of academic in nature, whereas in general, leaflets and brochures and basic English questions also appear. So that is the difference in the scoring. And later in the section, we'll discuss the scoring in detail as well.
Okay, so my next question is, Sana. Please discuss the topics and resources for journal and academic reading.
Yes, can you please move to the next slide, Hima?
Yes, sure. Mm-hmm.
Because it's slightly complicated, that's why I've written it on the slide so that people can easily see that and they can save this slide as well. So while academic reading and general reading is slightly different, because in academic reading the topics are of the general interest, and they are written for the general audience. Usually they are of the academic nature. These will be the paragraphs you'll find when you go to a university. So these are the paragraphs which will be of the introductory paragraphs of the books, or these will be of the academic nature, books from psychology, books from architecture, I mean general knowledge, but slightly academic in nature. Such type of paragraphs appear in the general reading, and they are from journals, books, magazine, newspapers, all those sources which provide authentic information. They're always authentic in their information. And a general reading has it checks the basic social English or training topics or general interest as well. Like one of the paragraphs is similar to that of the one which appears in your academic. So that's the difference between the two. And the sources for general reading are notices, flyers, timetables, documents, such things appear in your instruction manuals. They appear in your general reading exam. So I recommend that if you are going for academic reading, then you should read academic articles. And if you're going for general reading, then you should also prepare notices, leaflets, and advertisement brochures for the sake of your practice. So this is my opinion.
Okay, so the next question. Is there any difference in journal and academic reading?
Oh, yes, there is a lot of difference between general and academic reading. As I just told you, that general and academic reading topics are very different. So, because of the difference in topics, the test difficulty level completely changes. And because of the difficulty level change, there is a change in the scoring as well. Because, as I told you before, that academic topics are taken from the books and journals which provide general information and academic information, whereas in general reading you also get brochures, or you might get something as simple as a train schedule or these types of things in general reading. So I recommend that if you're, whichever type of files you are preparing, please use the relevant material which is provided on authentic sites as well. British Council also gives you a lot of material for this. So this is different. I'd like to discuss the scoring as well.
Yes, please. That was the question I was about to ask. So, how the scoring is being done in IELTS reading section?
Well, the scoring is slightly different. As I told you that the reading difficulty level of general reading is relaxed, the scoring is slightly tough for general reading. And for academic reading, your reading material is slightly tough, but scoring is slightly relaxed. For comparison, I have provided charts of both general reading and academic reading. So as you can see in this chart, if you are appearing in the general exam, IELTS general, and you need band 7. So on my right hand side, there are scores for IELTS general reading. For band 7, you need to have a minimum of 34 out of 40 score. It means that you'll have to answer 40 questions and 34 of those should be correct if you want to have a band 7 in IELTS general. However, if you are taking IELTS academic and you want a band 7 score, then you only need to answer 30 correct questions and you will get that. So similarly, if you want to have a band 7.5 in IELTS academic, so you will need to have a minimum of 33 correct answer. Whereas if you want the same score, which is 7.5 in IELTS general, then you will have to answer 36 correct answers in your test. So for comparison, you guys can have a screenshot of this specific screen. Otherwise, you can just type in your search scores for IELTS general training or IELTS academic training and reading module, and you'll get this screen as well. So you can compare them both.
Okay, so my next question is, what common types of questions are there?
Oh, well, that is a very important question because when you are going to appear in the test, it's very useful if you are familiar with all the types of question. Questions are quite similar to those which appear in the IELTS listening. And because you already have started when you're taking the test in the real day, so you've already started the listening module, so you are in the mood to do the test. And you're already doing the same types of question in the last module, so it helps. So, but I have written all the questions on this screen so that you can have a complete knowledge of what type of questions you should expect in IELTS reading. The first is again the multiple type questions where you're asked the questions and you're provided 4 or 5 options and you have to choose the correct one. As I mentioned before, it can either be choose the correct answer where 4 of the options are wrong and just one option is correct, or it can be choose the best answer where there can be more than one right options, but you have to choose the best suited answer. So keep an eye for this one. Second is again short answers. Short answers can be 1 to 5 word long, and it's always written over the question that how many words you have to answer in. For example, it will be written over the question that only answer this question in 1 word only, or answer this question in not more than 3 words. So whatever is given, whichever instruction is given, you'll have to answer it according to that. If you exceed the word limit, then you will not be given marks. You'll be penalized for it. And the most common and my favorite question is fill in the blanks, because here you mostly know what the answers are, and students usually get less confused in fill in the blanks. So if you're feeling confused in your test, just shuffle your question booklet and see where the fill in the blanks are given and start from that portion. That will give you some confidence. And next is completing notes, summary, tables, flowcharts. That's very similar to completing to fill in the blanks, but here you won't have sentences. You'll either have a paragraph, which will be the summary of the whole passage, and you'll have to answer questions. You'll have to fill in the gaps, or it might be a flow chart of a process. If there is a process described in the reading module, then you'll have a flow chart drawn, a summary flow chart, and you'll have to fix in the details over there. It can be labeling a diagram. For example, once I saw that there was a big bridge built in some country, and they had used some unique kind of machine to remove water from the bases of the bridge. So the whole paragraph was about that machine, and at the end of the diagram, at the end of the passage, there was a diagram of the machine, and different parts of the machine were labeled. So reading the passage, you had to read, label the machine. This type of question can also appear in IELTS academic. Usually such questions appear in IELTS academic. And choosing headings for paragraphs, or well, this is a very easy question, but most of the people get really stuck with this. They get confused whenever this question appears, writing headings of the paragraphs. I don't know why. So for this, I recommend people that whenever you are doing reading in your real life, just after you've finished a paragraph, just go back and think for a second that what was the paragraph about. Usually, you'll find the answer in 1 to 2 lines of the opening lines of the paragraph. Remember, because you're sitting in an IELTS academic reading test, that means that the patterns, the questions are, oh, sorry, the paragraph is of academic nature. And academic writing has this characteristic that all the paragraphs have their purpose defined in 1 to 2 lines. So this trick can help you, that if you are providing headings to paragraphs, usually first 2 lines of the paragraph are very important to give you a view, to give you a hint that what should be the heading of this paragraph. Then there is a similar type of question, that is locating information. You will be given 5 to 6 lines containing some information, and you'll have to tell that in which paragraph was this information first or mentioned. And the paragraphs will be numbered like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, or as many as it can be. So you'll have to see that this information was provided in which paragraph, A, B, C, or D. That's also an easy question, but sometimes people get confused with that as well. Then there is identifying point of views. These type of questions also appear in IELTS listening as well. And sometimes you're given the paragraph is about the discovery of something, and there are a few scientists who have worked on that. So you will be given a list of all the scientists and the discoveries, and you will have to match them. This can be a match the column type, or you'll have to tell that which scientist had what point of view about the discovery. Then there are true, false, not given questions, which are very commonly confused with correct, incorrect, and not given questions. Both of the questions are very similar. The first difference is that it is written over the question to write true, false, or not given. Remember that this is about the paragraph. In scientific discoveries, it often happens that when scientists are doing research about something, then first they come to a wrong conclusion, but they believe it to be true. So at that time, that is the opinion of the scientist, right? It doesn't need to be necessarily correct. It just is an opinion. So according to the paragraph, that can be true. Many people get confused over there that, oh, this thing cannot be true because we know now that this is not correct. So this is the difference between true, false, and not opinion. The true, false, not given is about the opinion of people in the paragraph. And what mistake people make with this type of question is that they usually write T or F for true and false, or they tick or they cross it, which is completely wrong. You're supposed to write the full word TRUE true, or the full word FALSE false. And for not given, you have to write completely NOT not and GIVEN given, right? Same goes for correct, incorrect, that if the statement that is given to you, you find a similar meaning statement in the paragraph, then it is correct. So write the full word, CORRECT, correct. And if it is not, then give incorrect. And if you do not find any information, that particular information is not given in the passage, then you write not given. So these are the common types of questions that appear in IELTS Academic and IELTS General, and you should be very familiar with them.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. So now this was the detailed one. Okay, moving towards our next question. How one can effectively manage his or her time in this section, in this reading section?
Well, as I mentioned before as well, IELTS reading is not that challenging. The real challenge is have to read 40 questions, and you have to read all the paragraph as well, and then you have to answer the 40 questions, and you also have to transfer them to a sheet. So yes, that mixes up all the actions, and that is why most of the people find this reading module challenging, because of the shortage of time. So here are a few tips for you guys. If you're going to take your IELTS exam, then while practicing your test, practice these tips as well. And I hope that this will help you in effective time management. Like, first is read the questions first and then the paragraphs. Some people, as soon as they look at the question booklet, they just open and start reading the paragraph. This way, they have no idea what information they are looking for, and they are just reading it in vain. So I recommend first read the questions. If, for example, if question 1 to 10 are related to passage 1, then you should read all the questions first and try to remember the questions, so that you don't have to look at the questions again and again, and then read the passage. In this way, you'll find answers, and you can fill the answers effectively. Then circle all the important information. For if you're reading the passage, and for example, you're looking for the answer of question 1, but you find the answer to question 2, then circle it and write 2 over it. This will save your time. Later, you can write the answers collectively. The third thing is skimming and scanning. In fact, these are the two basic reading skills, skimming and scanning, and you'll have to practice them differently. Skimming is when you read the whole paragraph just to see that what is the meaning of the whole paragraph. You're not looking for specific information. You just want to get to the gist of the whole passage. So then you use skimming. Usually you skip every third or fourth word in a line in order to skim through a paragraph, and that is a faster way of reading. And the second is scanning. Scanning is when you know a specific piece of information is required and you just look for that word. For example, if the paragraph was about Eiffel Tower and the question is what is the height of the Eiffel Tower, so you know that the height would be written in a numerical form. So in the whole passage, you'll just be looking towards numbers. So wherever the numbers are written, you can just circle them, and that will be the height of the paragraph. So this is one of the techniques for saving times. And as a precaution, give headings to all the paragraphs, that this is just for you. You can scribble that what this paragraph was about. For example, again, it was about Eiffel Tower. So about the first paragraph, it might be why it was constructed. So you can write reason of construction, scribble it with the side of the paragraph. And if the second one is about the material used in the Eiffel Tower, so you can write material used in the Eiffel Tower. This way, when you reach the end, if there are any questions that you haven't answered, you can just figure out that in which paragraph will the answer of that question be, because you have already marked all the paragraphs, that what is in those paragraphs. And yes, again, practice to improve your speed. And for that, I recommend reading subtitles. In the listening module, somebody asked me the question that whether it is more important to watch seasons with subtitles or without subtitles. So if you're practicing your listening module, please switch off your subtitles. But if you want to improve your reading speed, then you should use subtitles, because you're trying to improve your reading. And reading subtitles is a way of improving your reading speed, because after some time subtitles disappear. So you have to keep up with the speed. So you can use this technique to improve your reading speed.
Wow, Sana, this was a wonderful insight given by you. Oh, so my next and last question is, are there any pro tips regarding reading section?
Oh, well, there are always tips, because people have been taking IELTS for like years and years, and every time somebody comes back after taking the IELTS exam, so they have some good tips at their hand. And I always ask my students to give me those detailed tips, and I note them down, and I give those precious pieces of advice to my other students who are yet to take them. So here are a few, the list of techniques that can be used which will help you in your exam. Number one is learn to make predictions. Remember, whichever paragraph you are on, whatever type of information is given to you, excluding the fiction. Fiction means drama, poetry, exclude that. That never appears in your IELTS exam. You only have academic and logical information. So all the logical information is presented in such a form that first it is introduced, then it is discussed, and at the end, conclusion is provided to you. So this is never disturbed. This sequence is never disturbed. So I recommend learn to make predictions. Whenever you are asked a question, just ask yourself whether this would belong to introduction, it sounds like introduction, or it is the description of something, or does it sound like the end or the conclusion of something? So depending upon that guess, you can predict in which part would be the answer. Also, most of the paragraphs are about the information or topics of general interest. So before looking for the answer in the passage, you can ask yourself, do you know the answer? For example, if it is about archaeology, um, and it's written that what precautions should we take around archaeological sites. So it's a common thing, common sense answer that you usually have to be very careful because things are old and fragile, so they can break. So before looking into the paragraph, you have the answer, you have predicted the answer. So this thing can help you because you only have 50% of the answer in your mind. And second is leave the words you don't understand. One of the problems with most of the people who are not very, who haven't practiced much for the exam is that if they encounter a word in the IELTS reading that they haven't heard before or seen before, or they don't know the meaning of that word, they get stuck with that word. Remember that it is possible to get very good marks without knowing the meaning of all the words in the IELTS reading exam. If you don't know the meaning of one word, just leave that and move on. It doesn't disrupt more than one MCQs that you'll have to answer. So just leave it and move on. And the third is the last paragraph is usually longer than the first two. So ideally, you should leave at least 25 minutes for that paragraph and 15 and 15 for the first two paragraphs. That is a rough time management. It might be that one of the paragraphs is more difficult, so you can make your own assessments. And usually more questions are asked from the last passage, so save more time for it. And while practicing reading, you can note down the phrases and words you like and use them in your spoken and your writing module. Well, reading is sort of primary source of learning new vocabulary. The second one is watching dramas and season and everything. So you can use reading for improving your vocabulary. When you're practicing reading at your home, you will definitely encounter many words that you haven't heard before. So note down in your copy and write down the meanings of those words and make 5 sentences so those words become a part of your usable vocabulary, that you would be using them in your spoken as well as your written texts. So in this way, you'll improve your vocabulary, and definitely vocabulary has marks in your spoken and your writing module. So you'll be, 3 of your modules will be benefiting from your IELTS reading practice. Then practice all types of questions, specifically headings and true false not given. These are the 2 types of questions that people make most mistakes in. So practice them well. And the last is answer all the questions directly on the answer sheet rather than answering in the question booklet. The reason being because you do not have those extra 10 minutes to transfer your answers, and many people um, become nervous at the end of the test when they realize that they have to transfer 40 answers to the answer sheet. That takes approximately 5 to 10 minutes. So I recommend that answer your questions directly on the answer sheet. That will be time saving and that will save you from the nervousness.
Thank you so much, Sana, for all the tips. Now, coming towards the myths regarding reading section. Number one myth is finishing reading section on the IELTS test is impossible.
Oh, well, this is the first myth, and that is completely wrong because there are people who've scored 8.5 or 9 bands. So definitely it is possible. And the University of Cambridge is all the time doing research on how to make this test more effective. So definitely after such a long research they have made this section. Definitely it is possible. And in fact, even I have done 9 out of 9 on reading. So reading and listening are the two modules where you can very easily get a 9 out of 9 band by just answering all the questions right. So pay attention, and this is completely doable because the word limit is always maintained between 1700 and 2400 words. So this is a very logical speed for any person to complete the test. So it is 100% possible to complete the test. However, pay attention to the time management. As I told you before, that some of the people, they do not apply the tips and tricks, and because of that, they cannot complete their test. But if you are doing time management since the beginning of the module, then definitely you will be able to complete it.
Okay, now coming towards our audience questions. So the first question is from Sharik Shadab. He's asking, will be there any definite number of reading paragraphs?
Usually there are 3 to 4 paragraphs. No, there is not a definite number of paragraphs. In fact, as far as I remember, once one of my students reported 6 paragraphs. But it is written on the official British Council website that the number of words will combined of all the 4 paragraphs will never be more than 2400 words. So that means it doesn't matter how many paragraphs are there or how long they are, the number of words will always be same.
Okay, perfect. Again, we have another question from Sharik. He's asking, what is the assessment criteria of true, false, not given types of questions?
Well, this is a very important question because most of the people get stuck with true, false, and not given. And yes, it does seem a little bit confusing in the beginning. So listen carefully. It's not undoable. Most of the time, people just get nervous. What you have to do is that read the statement and understand its meaning, because most of the people, what they do is they read the statement and then they look for the statement as it is in the passage. Of course, that's not how they are going to put the information over there. The question will be present in a paraphrased form. The statement that they are asking you about, that whether it is true or false, if you find a statement in the paragraph that supports the statement, that is the evidence of the statement that proves it to be true, then it is true. Look carefully again, and if you find a statement opposing of that statement, like there is a paragraph, there is a line in the passage that gives the opposite meaning of what they have asked you in that true false not given section, then it means that because it contradicts, the statement is false. And if you find neither a statement that confirms it nor a statement that contradicts it, that means that information is not given in the passage. So you can safely write not given to that question. And same goes for correct, incorrect, and not given.
Okay, the next question is from Mohammed Salim. He's asking, in IELTS academic reading section, reading questions are mostly from books, newspaper. Is this right? Is reading test more of vocabulary?
Well, yes, it is true that most of the passages appear from books and newspaper, but books and newspapers are not the only source. It can be from definite sites, but it is always authentic. It can be from a journal, it can be from an authentic scientific website, but it is always authentic. It's never taken from XYZ website about whose authenticity is questionable. It never appears like that. So, and it is not only about vocabulary, it is about time management, reading speed, understanding, and comprehension. In fact, comprehension and time management are the two challenges for reading module. Vocabulary is not that much of a big problem in the reading exam.
Okay, our next question is from Fahim Khan. He's asking, please recommend some books, some good books and journals for reading.
Well, many people ask me that recommend us some good journals or books, etc. And I say that whenever you are going to take a test, always go towards the X papers of that test. So I recommend that you should go to IELTS Cambridge books. and attempt just one test from any of the IELTS Cambridge books, or attempt the sample test from British Council website. And if you score around 6, then I think you should start from book 8, IELTS Cambridge book 8, and go all the way up to book 15. And if you have 6.5, then you can start from book 10. And if you are below 6, then you can start from book 5, IELTS Cambridge book 5. And if you're taking general, then take the IELTS Cambridge general book. And if you're taking academic, then practice the IELTS Cambridge academic one. But I recommend, instead of going towards other books and magazine and journals, it's good that you prepare from IELTS Cambridge books, because they give you the exact X exam papers of IELTS. So if you cover from book 5 to 15, then it's a lot of reading material, and definitely you'll score really good. So my opinion is that you should go for IELTS Cambridge books.
Nurul Amin is also asking similar type of question. Best resource for practicing reading.
I recommend IELTS Cambridge. If you do not have a teacher, then you can go to Barron's book, because that gives some very good tips and tricks. For reading and listening modules, you do not need a teacher as such, unless you are scoring below band 5 or band 5.5, then you need a teacher. Otherwise, you can prepare it on your own. Just follow IELTS Cambridge books, and if you have a teacher, and if you don't have a teacher, then Barron's is also a very good source. So these are two good sources for practicing reading.
Again, we have a question from Nurul Amin. He's asking how to choose paragraph which can be solved first.
Well, there are two techniques, and because every person is different from the other, everybody has learned reading in a different way. So there are two ways. Some people start with the first question, with the first paragraph, and they have a target that they have to complete it in 15 minutes. So if you're very good with time management, and you can do it this way, that there are three paragraphs and you can solve the first two in 15 minutes, and the last one can be solved in 25 minutes. If you can move on like that, very good. But there are some people who get confused, and when they are confused, they cannot answer the questions perfectly. So they start with the last paragraph. The last paragraph is the most difficult one, and most of the questions are asked by from the last paragraph. So what they do is that they keep a time limit of like 25 minutes, and they solve the last paragraph first. So these are the two techniques, and I recommend try both of them in your practice exam and see which one works best for you. So this is how you can know that which paragraphs you can solve first.
Okay, Aisha Bhatti is asking, can you give us some tricks that we can implement by doing yes, no, and not giving questions?
Well, I've discussed this one before, but again, I
Hmm.
would like to say that whichever question you are answering in true false given, do not look for the exact statement in the paragraph. It will be in the paraphrased form, right? So find a statement that supports that statement which is given in the question. And if you find a statement that proves the question right, then the answer is true. If you find a contradicting statement, then the answer is false. And if you find a statement that neither proves or not disproves the statement, I mean, in the whole paragraph, you find no statement that proves or disproves it, then it means that it is not given in the text. This is same for true, false, not given, or correct, incorrect, not given. Just write the words which are given in the question. Like if it's correct, incorrect, then write correct, incorrect. And if it is true, false, then write the whole word TRUE, true, or FALSE, false. I think that
Okay.
answers your question, Aisha.
Uh, yeah. So our next question is from Aziz Rahman. He's asking marks distribution.
Yes, we have discussed the marks distribution in detail. So usually people want a band 7. So for IELTS academic, you need to score above 30 to get a band 7 in IELTS academic. And for IELTS general, you need to score at least 34. Short, but we have discussed the mark distribution in detail, and you can, Aziz, you can later record go back into the video and see that slide.
Okay, we have another question from Mohammed Salim. He's asking, can we ignore things which we already know about topic? that save time. Other question is everybody has different time speed for reading and answering question. Is skimming and scanning helpful for this? For this, yeah.
I'll answer the later question first. Of course,
Okay.
skimming and scanning is very useful because if you're answering a question which is about the gist of the paragraph, then you'll need skimming. And if you have to look for specific information, then scanning is important. And can we ignore things which we already know about the topic that save time? Um, I don't recommend that because I tried to apply this technique a few times, and what happened was that I made a guess that the conclusion would be something like that, and I completely skipped the last paragraph and answered the questions. And what happened was that I was overconfident, and in the last paragraph, the expectation that I had was completely overthrown. So I don't recommend that you leave the details that you already know about. However, if no question is asked about a certain part of paragraph, then there is no need to read that paragraph. Only read those parts of the paragraph which where you are asked a question. So yes, this is my recommendation.
Okay, we have another question from Noor and Malik. Can eliminating technique be used in reading section means eliminating wrong answers and go towards right ones?
Yes, that is a very good technique, the elimination one. If you immediately cannot look for the right answer, you cannot spot this one, especially in choose the best answers. It happens that people get confused because there are more than one correct options. So you can use the elimination technique over there. What you can do is that look at all the answers and first eliminate all the wrong answers. Then you will have two to three statements that you think can be the possible answers, and then looking at those two carefully and seeing which one is better than the other, you can spot the right answers. Yes, elimination is a good technique.
We have another myth. This is kind of myth from Fahim Khan. He's asking how to memorize what we read.
Well, that takes a lot of time and practice. Most of the people cannot do it in 2 to 3 months. It is a habit that you have to develop from a very young age. And in order to develop that, read one paragraph, stop, and then think in your mind what you have read. So if you do this technique again and again and again, then your mind will become habitual of retaining information. So yes, that will help you.
Okay, so Sana, I guess we are done with all the important questions. Now, most of the people are asking, can please Sana recommend some good academies or so can you please tell about Language House, what it does offers?
Of course, why not? Well, the first thing I'd like to say is that reading can be done on your own as well. If you have Barron's book or if you just keep on practicing, it can be done. There are many tips and tricks given on many of the resources. For example, on Language House, you have many tricks to improve your IELTS reading band. Also, you have some on British Council website, on IELTS with Liz. All these resources give you loads of tips to improve your reading. And the gist is that you have to practice. The more you practice, the better will be your score. But in case if you take the sample test and your band is below band 5.5, like you are around band 5, that means that you need a teacher to help you with your reading skills because that is a low score. So in that case, Language House offers a very good online course, and for all the modules, and that also includes about reading as well. What we do in our course is that we provide you with the reading material. We use the authentic IELTS Cambridge books, and according to your band, we start with a specific book. You solve that, and then we analyze that which is the type of question where you are losing most of your marks. Also, we realize that which part of language you find problems with. For example, some people are not good with prepositions, so they always do a mistake when the question is around a preposition. So these types of techniques can help you better improve your reading skills. So if you are below band 5 or around band 5 in your reading skills and you need help with that, you can take help from Language House. You can directly message on our Facebook page, which is Language House PK, and we'll send you the link for registration of the course. In fact, our new course is about to start. After read, we are taking registrations for after read, and if you want tips, then tips and guidelines are provided for free. So yes, you can
Okay.
do it.
Bushra Malik is asking for an academy in Lahore, the best academy in Lahore, if you
Uh,
know. Otherwise, it's not compulsory to answer.
Yeah, exactly. We don't know the best academy in Lahore, but for reading module, you can use online resources and you can also get tips from Language House. So, yes, that's it. Otherwise, Language House can teach you online everything. So, whether you are in Lahore or you are in Norway, you can have your course. That's not a problem.
Okay, I guess we are almost done. We have only two last questions from Rai Irfan. Uh, the question is, I would like to say one more thing here. Group reading is the most important for practicing all questions and reading module. Like, is that true? Do you agree, Sana, with this point?
Most of the youngsters who are taking IELTS exam, whenever they sit in groups, they stop concentrating on the paragraphs and they start talking to each other. So usually group reading is not very effective if you're not very mature. Like I found group practicing more group reading useful when I was in my MPhil. So that is a big class. That is when only those people who are very fond of reading they reach that level. So usually the people who are younger and they are doing IELTS practice, I do not recommend group reading because in the real test you will not be allowed to do group reading, right? So it's good to practice the test on your own because in the test you will be alone. So practice alone. It's better.
Okay, so now this is the end of our questions. We have a couple of questions from Aziz Rahman. Sana, do you want to take any of them? He's asking, okay, if it asks to answer in not more than 3 words, can I answer the question in 1 or 2 words?
Yes, you can, Aziz. If it is written not more than three, it means that one, two, or three are allowed. Four and above four is not. So, yes, you can answer in 1 to 2 words.
Okay, so this was the last question. Now, Fahim Khan is asking, will you continue your classes here because we are enjoying to learn and thanks.
Yes, after some time, inshallah, Scholarship Corner is a very good platform, and the audience here is very serious and fond of learning. So, yes, Scholarship Corner and Language House are they will be working in collaboration after some time as well. And yes, we look into arranging more classes or more things as well. Yes, we will, inshallah.
Okay, this question is what I was also thinking. So Nurul Amin is asking, can we highlight main points with pencil or highlighter? The highlighter is allowed, by the way, in the
No,
exam?
no, the highlighter is not allowed. Well, it depends upon the center that you'll only be allowed to take a pencil or a ballpoint, a pen, right? So usually the 2 HB pencil is allowed to take in a room, and some centers don't even allow you a pencil of your own. They will provide you with a pen and a pencil to attempt the paper. So you can take a pencil and a pen, but not a highlighter. A highlighter is not allowed inside the test center. So you can use pencil, and yes, you can write, you can circle different words, you can scribble different notes on the question sheet because the question sheet is not allowed outside the room. So whatever you want to do, you can do with the question sheet. But you cannot use a highlighter because you will not be allowed to take a highlighter in that room.
Okay, so I guess we are 2 minutes ahead of our time schedule. So we have only last 2 minutes. Sana, so would you like to take a few more questions? We have another one.
Yes, please, if there are, we can.
This one is from Fahim Khan. He's asking difference between IELTS academic and journal testing. Please answer.
Okay, well, as I mentioned before, in IELTS academic, you get topics of general interest, and the sources of the paragraphs are magazines, journals, and newspapers. Whereas in IELTS general training, you also have topics related to basic English, basic training, And the paragraphs, the material that appears in test is also taken from leaflets, brochures, and different train schedules, etc. So this is the difference in the material. And yes, scoring is difficult. If you want a band 7 in IELTS general, you'll have to score 34 at least. But for an IELTS academic, you'll score band 7 on 30.
Okay, so this was the end of our session. It's almost 50 minutes now, and this is the time to take a leave from you all. Please pray for for yourselves as well as for us, so that we continue some more good sessions for you. Okay, so good night, Shabbat khair. Have a good Ramadan. This was all. We will be coming tomorrow again with our last and very important section, IELTS writing. So if you have any questions regarding IELTS writing, please do comment. Okay. So now the last few words if you want to say.
Yeah, the last words are that reading is a very important module and that supports your spoken writing, reading definitely, and listening as well, because the vocabulary that you learn in reading module is very important. So practicing for IELTS reading module will improve your performance in other modules as well. So you should practice this one the most. That is my message.
Okay. Goodbye, everyone. This was the advice from Sana.